We have some news coming out here. The Las Vegas Raiders have officially opened up the practice window, the 21-day window, for quarterback Aidan O'Connell, adding another element to the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback room. This is basically saying that Aidan O'Connell's back, and the Raiders, not saying we're going to bench Geno Smith and go forward with Aidan O'Connell. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But we are getting this report by Ian Rappaport that is putting it out there that AOC, he is officially back. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I watch a lot of Raiders football. I watch a lot of Geno Smith, and it actually makes me excited for Aidan O'Connell to actually come back. And it's kind of sad that we're already kind of at this point. Now, obviously, we're not going to make the switch right away, right? Aidan O'Connell has 21 days, so he may technically not even be active for like 3 more games. But with that being stated, he will be back at some point. And I think for the Raiders, this is a really good spot to kind of be in. Aidan O'Connell has always kind of shown flashes, but he's always struggled when teams blitz him. He's always kind of struggled under pressure. And he doesn't really have that ability to create. And then you have a guy like Geno Smith who, he can create, but for some reason he doesn't really run all that often. You have a guy like Kenny Pickett who can probably run a little bit more than Geno Smith, but he's also probably not as good of a passer, at least from what I've seen, when you compare a guy like to Aidan O'Connell or even Geno Smith, right? At least what Geno's kind of shown us in the past. But it is interesting because, you can only, most teams only take 2 quarterbacks in, and then you have that third emergency quarterback. And I think for the Raiders, this is interesting because you can now go into these games and you're going to say, is Aidan O'Connell going to be the guy for the Raiders, or will it be Kenny Pickett? Because the Raiders did trade a valuable pick for Kenny Pickett when Aidan went down. And we've seen Kenny come in right in this most recent game against the Chiefs, kind of got blown out. Kenny came in, he fumbled the first snap. And I'm pretty sure he just handed the ball off after that on every single play going forward. So we didn't actually see Kenny Pickett try to run an offense. But we know what Aidan O'Connell's done in the past. He's always kind of flashed, although he did struggle in preseason. And I think that is something we have to keep in mind. Aidan struggled in preseason under Chip Kelly, under Pete Carroll, and he did not look good. Those are a couple of plays. I forget what team it was. He gets baited into an interception. I can't remember the team it was. Maybe it was the Seahawks. I don't remember exactly. But, he gets baited into an interception. He gets trapped by the defense. They're running cover 2 trap. And this happens, often to quarterbacks that can't really create, or quarterbacks who, when you blitz them, they struggle a little bit. And we know that's kind of the case with Aidan O'Connell. But who knows? You can always improve. You can always get better. We've seen guys actually get better over the course of their careers. You watch a guy like Josh Allen early on, and I thought Josh Allen was one of the worst quarterbacks I'd ever seen. And now look at him. He's the best quarterback in the NFL at this point. To me, that makes a difference, right? Being able to kind of develop and have an organization kind of build around you. And I'm not saying we're building around Aidan O'Connell, but the fact that he's back actually has me excited. And I think there's a good chance the Raiders will end up playing Aidan at some point this season. I like Geno Smith and I want him to have success, but something tells me he's going to continue to struggle, if we're being 100% honest. And then with that, we'll just see what ends up happening, right? I do think the Raiders are still going to try to win games. And I also think, Pete Carroll has shown us in the past, if there's another quarterback that's in the building that could potentially have success, we're going to go with that quarterback. We're not going to just commit to one guy. And I know, he brought in Geno Smith, but if you guys think way back when, there was a time when Russell Wilson, 3rd round pick, comes into the Seahawks. You had, I believe it was Matt Flynn at that time for the Seahawks. And Flynn struggles, and they quickly made that change to Russell Wilson. And there was a time when Russell Wilson started to struggle, and they quickly made that change to Geno Smith. So, if you think about it, Pete Carroll has shown us that he is willing to make that change. And, he makes permanent changes. So, let's kind of keep that in mind at some point if we do make the change off of Geno Smith. I do think at that point we would just kind of go forward with whatever quarterback it is. And we can technically get out of Geno Smith's contract. We do still incur, I believe, like $15 million in dead cap going into next season. But still, you save some cap as well, technically. So we'll see what ends up happening. Excited for Aidan to actually be back. I do understand he struggled in preseason. But I also remember Pete Carroll telling us that, hey, we're not showing our offense out there. We're not running our plays that we think we can have success with. Which obviously, I don't know if they've even run those plays at this point yet, but we'll see if it actually kind of happens as we go forward. Now, let's go ahead and switch focus. Obviously the Raiders have this entire Jakobi Meyers situation that's kind of, hung over the heads of the Las Vegas Raiders roster at this point. We've talked about this multiple times, and there's been multiple stories that have kind of come out. You have one insider saying Jakobi Meyers is going to be moved. You have another guy saying Jakobi won't be moved. You have a third guy saying the Raiders are not actually actively shopping Jakobi Meyers. And now you got the fourth guy here, Jeremy Fowler. He put this article out there. Fowler is a good insider, right? He gets real information from these general managers and those type of things. He's not the type of person that makes things up. Keep in mind, there's a lot of insiders that make things up, right? And, anyways, this guy put this article out on ESPN, and he talked about the Jakobi Meyers trademark game. He gives a pretty interesting update. He said teams that he's talked to believe that Meyers has a decent chance to be dealt, possibly the best chance among available wide receivers. The Las Vegas Raiders have received interest in the 7-year veteran, and my sense is the Raiders want a strong pick for Meyers. A swap of day 3 picks won't do that at this stage. He went out there and said several teams are believed to be interested in the receiver market, and most notably the Steelers and possibly the Broncos and Bills. So those are the teams that could potentially be interested in Jakobi Meyers. And, he kind of puts it out there, which is something we already know, right? Meyers clearly wants out. Raiders are in the transitional phase. They signed Tyler Lockett. So obviously the Raiders are already kind of looking forward to moving off of Jakobi. It is interesting, though, that, Fowler here does say, the sense is the Raiders want a strong pick for Meyers. A swap of day 3 picks won't do it at this stage. It's kind of interesting. So if you guys don't know this, yesterday the New England Patriots made a trade of Keon White, who was their 2nd round pick. I believe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. He was a 2nd round pick. He's always kind of flashed upside. He was always kind of developmental. He always had like the athletic traits. But he was a 2nd round pick. And he's a defensive end who's like 25 years old. And all the Patriots got for him was essentially they traded him and a 7th round pick, and they got back a 6th round pick. So basically it was a day 3 swap where you move up 1 round, but you're not getting a free pick. You're still giving up one of your picks. So people are saying that the Raiders don't want to do that, right? Jeremy Fowler's putting that out. The Raiders are not looking to make a day 3 swap. So the Raiders are not willing to say, hey, Pittsburgh Steelers, we'll give you Jakobi Meyers and a 7th round pick. You give us a 6th round pick. The Raiders are not willing to do that. And the reports right now are saying that the Raiders want a day 2 pick, which means the Raiders right now want a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Jakobi Meyers. And I'm going to be honest, guys. If I'm an NFL team out there, unless we have the worst wide receiver room in the NFL, and the Raiders said we want a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Jakobi Meyers, I would hang the phone up and I would not make that trade. To me, Jakobi Meyers is not worth the 2nd or 3rd round pick. And that's not a knock on Jakobi, but Jakobi Meyers is a possession wide receiver. He's not a deep threat. He's not a playmaker in the general sense where you look at like Justin Jefferson, you look at Jamar Chase, right? He's obviously not that. And on top of that, Jakobi Meyers has made it clear he does not want to be on your team. And I know Jakobi Meyers is saying, hey, I'm willing to play, have these teammates. I love these guys. Jakobi Meyers does not want to be with the Raiders. And I think if the Raiders don't trade him, I think Jakobi just sits out the rest of the season. Or I wouldn't be surprised if he decides that, hey, I don't want to play for the Raiders. And in that instance, something happens. Maybe the Raiders just release him at that point. In the NFL, you can no longer hardball players. And if you do, you're going to be on the bad side of it on the other side, right? It is rare that you can do what the Raiders are doing with Jakobi Meyers. And I think the Raiders have made an entire mistake from early on. They should have traded him before the season begun. I'm sure Jakobi had made it clear that he wanted to be traded. I think John Spytek has obviously made a huge mistake. And now we're on the other side of this where I think a day 3 pick is all that's going to end up happening, right? I'd be surprised if a team says we'll give you a 2nd round pick for Jakobi Meyers or a 3rd round pick for Jakobi Meyers, right? We'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward. But I did want to just give you guys that update. There's 3 teams that need wide receiver help right now. The Steelers, the Broncos, which the Broncos, I don't know if I would trade Jakobi to the Broncos, given we still play him twice. And, of course, the Bills as well. The Bills could make sense. Steelers could make sense as well. The Bills have some injury issues, and I do think Jakobi could be a good fit with the Bills, given they have a good quarterback. That too, the Bills' offense, it's not explosive pass plays. A lot of the Bills' offense is quick game. A lot of it is get the ball out quickly. So I think that could definitely make sense. The Steelers would be interesting as well because they have DK Metcalf, who's kind of that deep threat. And they don't have a guy that's really over the top. They have a couple different tight ends, but even then, they don't really have a Jakobi Meyers type of wide receiver. And I think for the Steelers, it makes the most sense. And if the Steelers are willing to give you, let's just say, a 5th-round pick straight up for Jakobi, I think that'd be phenomenal for the Raiders. So we'll see what ends up happening. You know, I saw this stat. NFL offenses scoring the few points per drive this season. And the Raiders rank 3rd, and this is wild to me. And I started looking at some more advanced stats, so I'm going to show you guys here in a second. But, you know, I saw this stat, and I said, damn, our offense has been so bad that every other offense is surrounding us. The Titans, the Browns, the Saints, the Falcons, those teams right there literally have rookie quarterbacks, if not second-year quarterbacks, that are kind of inexperienced or basically they're rookies. Right? Penix didn't play most of last year. The Saints, Spencer Rattler didn't play for most of last year. And then, of course, the Titans, Browns, they have rookie quarterbacks at this point. That is how awful the Raiders are. And, you know, even the Falcons, like 1.62 is a massive difference in 1.37. So, you know, from the Falcons downwards, those are pretty good offenses. But like for the Raiders, you know, you're essentially around these 4 teams. That's how bad this offense has been. And, you know, if Brock Bowers being hurt is the reason why our offense is this bad, that's kind of sad, to be honest with you, because that speaks volumes of the offensive coordinator. You know, if you guys think about the San Francisco 49ers, they lost their quarterback early on, right? He had that, I believe it was a toe injury. They went to their second-string quarterback. They lost some offensive linemen. They lost some wide receivers. The Niners, right, they've been banged up, and they're, 5-2 at this point? And that's because they have Kyle Shanahan, right? The best offensive coordinator, if not one of the best. It doesn't matter which players are healthy. He's going to make it work. He's going to win football games. Now, the Niners also have Robert Saleh, who I think is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL right now. So that obviously helps as well, but the Niners are still scoring points as well. The Niners have put up 30 points multiple times this season, while the Raiders have not had that type of success, right? But I was looking at some advanced stats I want to just show you guys really quickly. I want to talk to you guys about 2 things that I've kind of noticed where I think Geno Smith has to be a lot better. So just quarterbacks versus the blitz. Geno Smith, man, to me, just takes so many sacks against the blitz, and this is something that ruins drives, and here's why. You know, when you get into a, let's say, like 3rd and 5, for example, right? And Geno Smith is in a 3rd and 5, and you blitz him, you know, he's not going to throw the ball. He's already kind of playing scared out there a little bit. So what he does is he takes sacks. To me, you cannot take 9 sacks. Like, think about this. Cam Ward has taken 11 sacks. Like, Geno Smith is at this point playing like how a rookie quarterback would play. You're taking 9 sacks when teams are essentially blitzing you. And then on the other side of this, you know, I know Jalen Hurts is kind of right there as well, as you guys can see. But Jalen Hurts has 8 touchdowns against the blitz. So you're not really blitzing Jalen Hurts. Sure, he might go down, but, you know, they still score touchdowns as well. Geno Smith has 1 touchdown against the blitz. I mean, this is awful, right? This is really, really, really awful. Geno Smith, you know, you can just, you know, if your offense is so predictable, and I think this is one of the issues I've had with the Raiders this season. On the defense side, the Raiders are super predictable, right? When we're coming out in a 1-shell high look, we're playing cover 3 zone defense. Too predictable. When you're in a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and you know Geno Smith's the quarterback, you can just blitz him and he's going to take the sack, right? So to me, that is, you just got to be better for Geno Smith essentially, right? And here's the thing, as we kind of go forward, you know, the offensive line is a little bit healthier, and you've now had, you know, 6-7 games to kind of work together as a unit. They're getting better, and I think they will continue to grow and they'll continue to get better. We have some second-year players that I think can take the next step. We have a guy playing center for the first time. 7 games in, he might take a step. Colton Miller, you know, we don't know the extent to the injury, but maybe he comes back, you know, in 2 to 3 games. We'll see what actually happens. Brock Bowers is fully healthy, so maybe all of those different factors will actually allow the Raiders to be a little bit better. But another thing that I'm noticing is, and this is a quarterback coverage phase. This is by ProStatsIQ.com. Shout out to them for these stats. But one of the things I've noticed with Geno, and let me just find Geno Smith specifically. One of the things I noticed with Geno is there's a lot of zone dropbacks. 74% basically in terms of zone dropbacks. if you're a quarterback and the other team is playing zone, you have to be able to pick it apart. Specifically, if you're a quarterback that's been in the NFL for 6, 7, 8 years, zone defense is the easiest for teams to be able to pick apart. Now, obviously, the way you stop good quarterbacks, you can mix coverages, you can simulate pressure, you can play man coverage, cover 1, cover 3, just mix and match. But to me, this guy just, you have to be better, right? Straight up, you have to be better. If teams are playing zone against you 74% of the time, you have to be able to pick that apart. And right now, the Raiders have struggled a little bit. Now, another thing I should just kind of throw out there, the Raiders, not the Chiefs game, but the week before, I forget who we played. The week before that Chiefs game, the Raiders ran a lot of short concepts, a lot of quick game type of concepts. So when you are a quarterback and teams are playing zone at a high rate, the way you are against the Raiders, quick game picks apart zone. Because what happens is, and the Chiefs kind of did this to the Raiders, when you're playing cover 3 defense as much as the Raiders do, if you just throw it 3, 4, 5 yards at a time and you put those linebackers in that position where the linebackers have to kind of cover, you're going to be able to pick that apart. And now the Raiders are kind of in that same boat. 74% of the time, and if you throw the ball 10 times, 7.4 out of those 10 times is going to be zone. That means you should be able to run quick game. You should be able to pick up 4 or 5 yards easily. So, Geno Smith has to play better, but the coach on the offense side has to design better plays as well. We'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. I am excited for the Raiders to be back and play football against the Jags this week. Although I hated watching Raiders football like against the Chiefs and those games that we kind of sucked in. Not having the Raiders play for 1 week, it kind of resets your mind a little bit. I tune into football more when the Raiders play, if that makes sense. So I'm excited for the Raiders football to kind of be back. And we'll see what ends up happening. I know basketball season has kind of begun. A lot of Raider fans are Lakers fans, Warriors fans, Kings fans. And if you're a Laker fan, you should probably be excited this season, right? You got a really, really solid roster, and I know it's kind of banged up right now. If you're a Warriors fan, look pretty good, right? Look pretty good. I think they played the Clippers yesterday, and I think they won. So, Kings fans, unfortunate, it is what it is. But let me know what you guys think, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.